Hello everyone, welcome to another Power Talk with Archana. 25 years ago, 17,000 participants and 30,000 activists came together from around the globe having a single purpose in mind: gender equality and empowerment of women in crisis. I'm talking about the Beijing Platform for Action, the defining framework for change. Giving more power to this platform, I have with me the UN Women Ambassador, Ms. Sanya Seth. Ms. Sanya Seth is an experienced policy and program analyst with a demonstrated history of 10 years working in the international affairs and development sector. Sanya is skilled in evidence advocacy, research, community development, and lots more. Her focus has always been on ending violence against women. Sanya also puts down her thoughts in the form of articles concerning women's health, sexuality, and society. She is the country's program lead manager handling generation equality. Let's welcome Ms. Sanya Seth on board. Hello, Ms. Sanya. How are you doing today?
Hi, Archana. Thanks for introducing me and thank you for that very humble note.
Sanya, thanks a lot for gracing our show. We are really delighted to have you with us. So, Sanya, you have been working relentlessly on gender equality as the country program lead. Now, we feel that there has always been the impending need to focus on the areas of development for women from times immemorial. Employment generation, livelihood security for women, and lots more. And we believe a lot has been done, but there is still lots that need to be done. But there are roadblocks, that we see off and on. How do you see pushing away these roadblocks in bridging this gap?
Yeah, Archana, I think that there's still a lot that needs to be done, especially with the rollbacks on the gains that we've had, the gains that women's movement and the human rights advocates have achieved so far, not just in India, globally. And to answer your question, let me take a step back and put myself in two different positions professionally, as a person who works with the UN entity, and personally as a gender advocate. Um, like you'd said, the very ambitious and the unique role of UN Women as probably the youngest kid on the block is to play the role of bridging the gap between the constitutionally safeguarded equality for all women and girls, for all men and boys, across their diversities, across their different social identities, and the judicial and the legal affirmative actions that should mainstream gender equality across disciplines, social groups, and all spheres of our lives. While we are talking about roadblocks and gender specific barriers, which are not new, over the course of many decades and years, uh, we've agreed on international instruments and guiding principles that provide for such solutions to our common issues and our common concerns. As an intergovernmental institution in itself, UN Women, I see ourselves playing the central role in promoting gender equality by supporting governments on coordination with different UN agencies, collaboration with our civil society, with the very robust private sector that coexists in the country, on various feminist principles and feminist agendas, like the Beijing Platform for Action and the declaration that you talked about, but also CEDAW, which turns 40 years also this year, and also the Sustainable Development Goals that turned 5 years again in 2020. If I were to talk about it personally, I would say that, the continuous evidenced advocacy, and keeping women and girls at the heart of everything that we do with diverse voices that add weight to our agenda is how we get past all the roadblocks and move closer to what we've imagined for our generations to achieve.
Very well said. Totally loved it, Sonia. You're very right there. We have to have women at the heart of our thought process, and then we can definitely surpass all the roadblocks that come in our way. Very well said. Beautiful, absolutely. But I feel, Sonia, all said and done with budgeting and the allocation of funds for marginalized women or women who are differently abled or transgenders for that matter. I think it gets difficult at times to place everything in order. We need to reach the grassroots level after all. But how? What are your thoughts there?
I'm going to go back to something that I heard our Secretary General say, continuous and smart ways of investing in gender equality is the need of our hour. And, like he said, investing in gender equality is not just the right thing to do, but also the smart thing to do. But I also agree that, it tends to get concentrated in one bucket or a bucket of only few constituencies, people or, gender advocates. And it needs to trickle down to grassroots as much as possible. And if I can also add, it's not just about allocation or budgeting of funds, but is also innovative in the right ways in which you're spending those funds and resources that are available on
Absolutely.
gender equality agenda.
Absolutely.
Because not everything that is marked for gender and human rights issues is, you know, uh, it doesn't necessarily result in gender equality outcomes. So, not just budgeting, but also expenditure of those budgets in the right way would lead us to gender equality outcomes. So, if I can just put it like this, you focus on the last woman first, and plan for reaching out to her first. Follow the mantra of aiming for equal opportunities for equality in our outcomes. And that's when you will nail it. That's when your mission or your agendas are successful. That does not, I know that, it does not necessarily answer your question directly, but that's how I look at things.
I think you have given it quite the right direction, Sanya. You're quite right there. As you very rightly said, it's not only about budgeting, it's also about the way those expenses are made. We have to stay innovative and reach out to these women, and we can definitely do it. Very right, amazing. So, but I also feel, we have been talking a lot about generation equality, but do you think this just needs to get, capsuled in a campaign? I think it's an everyday affair. It's everyone's priority. As you rightly said, it has to be at the heart, at the core of what you do, what you venture into. But how easy and how difficult it is to accomplish that? What would you like to add there?
Presents a generational opportunity to mobilize everybody who believes in a better world that is possible for us to live in. And generation equality forums that are globally envisioned by UN Women in partnership with the governments of Mexico and France, they envision setting forth a transformative feminist action agenda for the next 10 years to catalyze on all of our efforts from the smallest scale to the global levels in achieving gender equality in all spheres of our life, for everybody, not just for this generation, but also for our generations to come. And again, like I said before, at the heart of generation equality is the voice of every woman, girl, and young people across the world to lead that ambitious and irrevocable vision to achieve gender equality for everybody. So you're right, generation equality is not just another forum and is not just a campaign, or not just any other campaign. It's the basic human right for everybody, and it needs to be articulated as a sense of urgency for sustainable, for collaborative, innovative, and transformative actions, to bring feminist agendas on the radar of the international community and our local decision making platforms. So, in that sense, for me, generation equality campaign extends beyond just the two forums that we're looking at, to shape an alternative vision of equality and justice, placing accountability on each and every one of us for a future where women's rights are at the center of the world, where we are imagining building back better. Yeah.
Lovely, Sanya. I am really very impressed listening to this. I think under your leadership, you will never let this agenda ever, the sun set on this agenda ever. I think this is really, really very beautifully stated by you. Sanya, tell me one thing. There are so many people, today who would want to contribute. They make their little contribution towards gender equality, generation equality. How can they reach you? Because you see, UN Women is a very huge platform, but there are corporates, there are solo entrepreneurs, there are children, there's students, young generation who would want to reach out to you, make their contributions, even the smallest possible way. What is the best way to do it? What campaigns they can join? What areas they can, how they can reach out to you?
I, I don't think that to make a contribution to this agenda that everybody should hold, it's necessary to reach out to anybody. You just have to contribute by starting a dialogue either on a dinner table, or starting a dialogue in your school conversation, or just probably speaking to a taxi driver who's driving you to work, or if you're sitting in a local train, traveling somewhere, just sit next to a stranger and strike a conversation. Try and understand what is the thought process, try and understand where are people coming from, and then also look at how do you contribute towards building respectful relationships between different genders, between people from different social groups, between people who have multiple identities, between people who may not be same as us, may not be a familiar person to us, but then showing respect, being tolerant, being accepting of the difference and the change is what I think you can do to start contributing towards gender equality and human rights for everybody. And in their own smaller ways, in families, between siblings, between friends, between strangers, I think that's the contribution. If everybody starts doing, I think the map will look much better, where you have these incredible people just being open arms with everybody who may not necessarily be a familiar identity.
Loved it. Totally loved it, Sanya. Really, really very proud of you for what you're doing. I think this goes out to my audience. You really need to listen to this interview. Your contribution comes from within. So start doing it within your ecosystem, with your friends, your people around. And this will really reach out to many people and many will join the league. Thank you so much, Sanya. Thanks a lot for coming on board, spreading awareness, talking to my audience.
Thank you so much, Archana.